I can see myself with the clothes I had on. And instead, like a 5-year-old child, I'm kicking the glass. I'm kicking it. I'm punching the glass. And I literally picture me on the other side of the glass, like flicking the glass, like I'm flicking the people off on the other side of the glass. And I'm like punching the glass and kicking the glass. And she's like, are you talking to her? And I'm like, I can't. I'm losing my shit. And she's like, what do you mean? And I'm like, me, the version of me that's there that night is losing my shit. I'm kicking the glass. I'm screaming. Like I was like screaming like profound, like profanities. Like I was flicking birds. I was kicking the glass. And I told you, and you go, okay, just let her do that. What's up, guys? Welcome to Rich in Real Life. And this special episode is going to be one you're not going to want to forget, because I think this might be, of all the things I repeat myself about, this might be the thing that I have mentioned the most often if you're close to me. As a matter of fact, if you're part of this community, the person I'm about to show you sitting next to me is someone that you probably already work with. And it's okay. Your secret is best kept. I don't know. But I've talked about her at length before. Some of you may know her personally. You've worked with her, but she's never been on the show. And she's not big on social media, so I haven't gotten the chance to share her and show her off the way I'm about to. But if you have heard anything from me, it is that all the work I did in 2021, the personal development, the deep diving I did to say, okay, your girl's got a little bit of trauma and it's dictating some of my decisions. And a lot of my life was lived through a lens of pain. And I wanted to change that. And I did everything under the sun. I did Reiki, I did hypnosis, I did spiritual hypnosis, I did generic therapy. I don't even know if that's the title, but I just did regular therapy. I did journaling, meditation, all the things. And they all had their own profound effect on me. And some of those tools I kept, and some of them I went through for a little bit, got some good things out of it and moved on. But one of the most profound things that was referred to me was a method, and I'm not the expert here, called EMDR. And it was a unique way of me processing some of my old memories. And in that process, I learned some shit, y'all. I learned that my 10 years of therapy could not have prepared me for the things I uncovered during this time. And so to finally deep dive into this, because every time I say the words or the phrase EMDR, people are like, what the hell is that? So to finally talk to my therapist and many of yours, and the person that administered this with me and helped me find, dig up, and process and sift through some of the deepest shit that was dictating my life, is the founder of Therapeutic Serendipity. I said it, thank God. A licensed clinical social worker, an incredible human being, if you've ever had the opportunity to meet or work with her, and just a profound woman. And I'm really excited to have her on, because her own journey is one of the reasons why she's so great at what she does. And so I'm so excited to deep dive into this and for you guys to learn more about this modality, and if it is for you, because it was definitely for your girl. It works. Trust me when I tell you it works. So I'm so excited to introduce and welcome to the show the woman sitting next to me, Heather Holop.
Hello.
I love that you're here and you're willing to do this with me. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me.
Yes. All right. So let's jump off the bridge. Ready?
Okay.
Okay, cool. So first things first, EMDR is not the only thing that you do, right? But you do some things.
Yeah, I do some things.
Yeah. You've worked with people going through all walks of life. But EMDR is something you've done with me and quite a few people that I know. What the hell is EMDR?
EMDR, it stands for Eye Movement Desensitization Reprocessing. And basically, in
English. Mm-hmm.
Yes, it works on bilateral stimulating both sides of your brain.
Yep.
So there's a process that you go through before you actually do the reprocessing that kind of helps you get down to a root memory and a negative belief that you have about yourself. And that's where it's really all about getting to the root.
Yes. Now, question number one, getting down to the root of the negative memory. How many times, and I just can say this from experience, how many times have people come to you with what they thought was the thing that they needed to clear up. And in a conversation, it was indeed not. It was something deeper than that.
Well, it's always something deeper, but they just usually want to work on the stuff that's present, the stuff that's, I call it like crisis of the week. I call it like
the crisis of the week.
I call it like chasing cows.
Yes.
So we chase cows sometimes, and sometimes that is important stuff to get through. But in those downtimes, it's really like when you can get back to the root, that's the most important thing.
Because I know for sure what you and I went through was not what I thought it was. It was deeper than that.
Yes, it usually is. It's usually prior to the age of 9 and within the family of origin.
Ooh, okay, wait. Before the age of 9 within the family of origin, what does that mean? The family of origin part, what does that mean?
Just within your family, your immediate family.
And so what I hear you saying is what is stimulated after that or created after that are things that originated before 9. And then I'm making up this theory I'm about to read off, is that like your crisis of the week is usually something that is created over and over in a pattern from things that happen before you were 9.
Yes, it's basically that you establish a belief about yourself when something occurs. Mm-hmm. It could be like, I'm not good enough, I'm unlovable, or something of that nature. And then from there on, what happens is that becomes your truth.
And you call these negative cognitions.
Yes. And when that becomes your truth, it goes on throughout your life and you basically try to outrun it. So you constantly are doing things that's trying to outrun the feeling of I'm not good enough or I'm unlovable. And then every time something bad happens, it kind of gets thrown right into that pile. And it could be completely unrelated. I mean, I don't want to say unrelated, but if you didn't have the negative cognition, it wouldn't necessarily affect you as much. But since, that's there, that's what happens. And then
I just got a pain right here because my mind's like, you a track star. I'm a track star. I'm a runner. As soon as I feel it, I'm either running or I'm fighting. Either or. Mm-hmm. Running or fighting. Neither of which works. From experience. They don't work, guys.
Yes.
I felt a sharp pain right here and I was like, that's my brain like, bitch, that's you.
That's probably a body memory of some sort. Did you ever do anything to your face?
Oh my goodness. Okay. So, all right, I'm going to jump right into this because when you said negative cognitions, I specifically remember you showing me the list because there's a list of things that are like typically what we tell ourselves.
Well,
our new truth.
And it's really just a point for you to kind of expand your thoughts, as it doesn't necessarily have to be on that list, but I find most often that people use that and like you can tell when it punches you in the gut. That's what I say. And I'm like, that's it. Like immediately once we get on to a memory, there's usually one of those that's very profound and kind of just feels icky.
Yes. So I remember you showing me the list and I was like, you were like, which one feels personal to you? And I'm like, half of them. Like, I remember I'm not enough. I'm unlovable. I'm unworthy. I don't matter. Like, I'm scared. It was like scared to survive or something, or I'm scared of people I love or something like that. And I was like, it's half of them. Like, I don't know, Heather. And then we got into deep diving into one of my most profound memories. And it got crystal clear on which one it was. Mm-hmm. And so I'm going to share this with you guys only because to me, and there's actually, I've done 2 reprocessings with you and many more to come. And I learned how often this cycle is validated through this one moment in time. And I only speak to this situation because I want you guys to see how powerful this is, as well as how powerful our subconscious is. And I'd love to hear you speak to that part too. Is there's a memory in particular in my childhood that I have done over 10 years of therapy about. It comes up every time I'm in hypnosis. It comes up every time I've been in therapy. And even between the age of like 24 and 28, I did like an insane amount of therapy with a licensed therapist to get through this, and thought it was resolved, guys. I had carried on with this. It was just a situation that when I was 5 years old, my mother and my father got into a physical fight in front of me while I sat on the couch. And my mother grabbed me at the end of the fight, picked me up. We ran outside. We hid in the neighbor's yard in a bush and waited for my father to leave. Now, they reconciled 3 days later. They got back together and nothing ever happened between them physically again. However, I thought in 4 years of therapy that I let that go. My father and I have a good relationship. My father and my son have a great relationship. And I was like, there's nothing more to do there. I've forgiven my father. And I remember working with you and we talked through a couple sessions, or maybe one, maybe two. And you were like, I just want to go back to that memory because I think it has something to do with some things. And if you know me, I represent all hard-headed individuals. So I'm like, no, Heather, I've done this one a million times. Like I have pretty much forgiven my father. And you were like, I know, just let's go there one more time. And I'm like, okay. So we get into this state, which by the way, I want to point out that you talked about bilateral beats. Is that what they call it?
Bilateral stimulation.
And we just had a money manifestation coach on the show. And she talked about being in your highest state to do manifestation around money is stimulated. You can use bilateral beats. Mm-hmm. So the power in this, I'll let Heather speak to, but we're playing this music. I'm deep in this memory. And in hypnosis and everything else I've ever learned, they always say like your subconscious is the most powerful when it comes to the deepest memories. And so there's a moment you stop me every couple minutes, 3-5 minutes to ask me where I'm at in the reprocessing. And you asked me one question that I had never been asked as I'm reprocessing this. Cause I have reprocessed this in other forms. I've done it in hypnosis, and some other things. And you said, what do you see right now? And I could see where my father was. I could see where my mother was, as if I were watching a movie. I could see it vividly. And you were like, well, where are you? And I said, I'm on the couch. And you said, what are you doing? And that, just in that moment, it took the whole visual and turned it towards me. I had never looked or thought about what I was doing ever. I thought I could remember what I could see and how I felt. I did not think to turn inward to look at myself to see what I was doing. And the moment you said, what are you doing? I realized I was screaming. And I had never in any of the therapy realized, I mean, sure I was, it was traumatic, but I did not acknowledge that I indeed was screaming. And you said, okay, the physical fight happened. Where did your parents go? Where did your father go? And when I closed my eyes and went back, I picked up a minute moment in this situation that I had never seen in all the therapy that I had done that I did not realize was the most important part. He walked past me. He walked past me to go down the hallway. And you said, did you say anything? Did he say anything? Are you screaming? Did he console you? Did you ask him to console you? And I heard myself screaming his name. It's so crazy that I don't have any emotion tied to this right now. It's so wild. I have zero emotion tied to this. I almost feel like I'm not even giving it enough emotional state, but I have zero emotion tied to this memory. There's other things I do, but not this one. So I said, Daddy, stop. And what I saw in this moment, when I repeated back to you what was said, you said, how did that make you feel? And I bawled into tears because I've been asked so many times in therapy sessions, and even with you, if that made me scared of my father. And I was always like, no, like I hug him. I see him all the time. I've forgiven him. I'm not scared of him. Yeah. And you even told me that later on in another session. You were like, you're not scared of your dad. No, I'm not. That moment was scary, but I'm not scared of him. I have forgiven that action of him. But when you said, how did that make you feel? And then you said, that was the moment that you decided that you don't matter. When you said the phrase, "you don't matter," it was like my inside shattered. Like I felt it from my knees all the way up through my body. And then I just bawled. And I remember I was hyperventilating and I was like deep breathing snot. I remember the pile of tissues that I had like while we were doing this. Because I'm just like, I can't. Because this particular phrase that I had never been able to pull out of "I don't matter" was 33 minus 5, if I can do quick math, 28 years. That was the thing that I have spent my last 28 years trying to do with men, with friendships, with school, with my career, has been trying to prove to individuals that I indeed do matter. Mm-hmm. That when you said that, I was like, that has been my entire life. That has been what I've been trying to do. That is the thing. Is no, look at me, listen to me. No. You're going to love me. I do matter. I matter.
Yes.
And then my ass goes and picks people that validate that I indeed think I don't matter. So this in itself, and there's more, but this moment in itself was shattering. I remember the next day I slept like a dog. I slept and couldn't get out of bed, but it wasn't like a depressed state. It wasn't, it was like someone lifted the heaviest elephant off my shoulders. Mm-hmm. And so is there anything you can speak to around that of just like, is that what happens with all your clients? Or is that like how powerful our subconscious is? Is there a reason why in 10 years I had not seen that very specific moment in time? Or was I just not asked the right questions?
Generally, when we go back with EMDR, with the bilateral stimulation, it kind of operates on the same mechanism as REM sleep. So, when you dream, when you're in REM sleep, everything seems so vivid. Mm-hmm. Well, that's because you're in REM sleep and your eyes are moving back and forth. So you're stimulating both sides of your brain, which is the same thing that we're doing when we have sound or eye movement. I use sound primarily most often because when you use sound and they close their eyes move as well. So you're getting both. So you're getting this, the stimulation from the sound, and then you're also getting the eye movement. As far as yours, that becomes, but your brain doesn't, that becomes your truth. Like, I don't matter, even though you didn't necessarily realize that. And then you only remember parts of the story a lot of the times that support your truth, right? You're not going to remember other parts of the story. So sometimes people will remember bits and pieces of the story that actually contradict, like somebody actually coming in and trying to soothe them or something like that. But after their brain has already kind of told them that, after like the devastation or the occurs and they develop a belief about themselves, it kind of stays frozen in time.
Yes.
So then your brain just kind of omits that stuff. It kind of just takes away the stuff so a lot of the times I always call them like the brain giving you little gifts. Like it'll bring up something like, a nicer part of, just part of that memory. Like people will leave out like the whole part where their mom came in and like sat next to them and, rocked them or something of that nature. And they'll be like, I didn't even remember that. Like, because your brain stays so focused on the trauma that it doesn't like in the truth. And that is the thought that we develop about ourselves in those moments is actually what is painful. It's not the memory, because the memory only exists in your mind.
So it's not, I hear what you're saying. So it's not the memory. It's the decision we make in that moment about whatever that falsified truth is in that moment.
And it could have to do with that. It could have to do with safety. It could be like, I'm not safe. I'm going to die. All of those things. Like there's all different types of negative cognitions.
That was that part right there was so profound, because like over all this therapy, people would always say that to me. They would be like, well, how did you feel? And I'm like, I don't know. And they'd be like, well, did you feel unsafe? Did you feel like you were going to die? And I'm like, no, no, like the man still lives with my mother. Like they have a phenomenal relationship. Like I see him all the time. I never felt threatened for my life. And so I could never really piece. I just knew it was this traumatic moment and memory in time, and it had an emotional state tied to it. But when you said you decided you don't matter, I was like, I would have never been able to put together the pieces of that, something that happened to someone else in front of me, and the result of me looking to be soothed in that moment or to get the situation to stop and it not being given to me, that was the truth that I told myself that literally became the truth for 28 years.
Mm-hmm.
That is my repeated pattern. Your girl's always trying to prove to someone. That right there.
Yeah. You spend your whole life trying to outrun it, even though you don't even know it's there.
What do you find, and generically, what do you find with most, I mean, I know you said we're outrunning it, but what do you find with most clients as they get to the point where it's like bursting at the seams? Like, is it in their behavior? Like, because I just feel like most people I know, they're dealing with all these things. And I'm like, that means there's something there that's bursting at the seams. All this shit is coming up for a reason.
Mm-hmm.
Where by the time they get in there, we're usually, we y'all, because it's we
Mm-hmm.
are usually incorrect about the thing that we're bursting at the seams about, because it's so deep, we can't identify it. What place, not what state, but what are people usually lying to themselves about by the time they get to you?
I don't necessarily think it's that they're lying to themselves about anything. It's just the fact that they've never really, we do such a great job of coping with things, especially you guys.
She's always like, you little master coper.
Yes. You like deep breathe. And I'm like, no, honey, we have to feel the emotion. We got to feel it. We can't just breathe through it.
Yes. Coined the woman that's going to make you cry.
Yes. Well, that's progress. Crying is progress. You don't necessarily have to cry. I've actually had clients that don't.
Mm-hmm.
There's definitely getting to that emotion and allowing yourself to feel it.
Mm.
Because like with you were talking before with your dad, and like the woman that's sitting in front of me right now has a relationship with her dad. She's not afraid of her dad. Mm-mm. She knows she matters to her dad.
Mm-hmm.
That's not the problem.
It's not.
But that's the truth. But that little girl had a different truth based on what she felt in that moment. So it's a matter of going back and looking at that video in your mind, the movie, and looking at it and understanding where she was. And the fact that no matter how far, you can't outrun it. It's always going to catch up to you.
Oh my God. Speaking of catching up to you, I'm going to give this to you guys so that you do know that it catches up to you. So this will probably be the deepest episode I'll ever have on the show. Like I say that all the time, but this one, you got it all. We found that out. We reprocessed that memory at the end of last year because I was suffering. I knew I was suffering. That was around the time that I had done the episode around Success Can't Silence the Noise. And I knew I was just in this place that felt like my life was so bipolar. Like I had the most, everything that I was living a life that was beyond what I could conceptualize as far as my achievements. I had hustled my way to every freaking thing I ever wanted. And I couldn't feel shit. I remember being on an airplane with my mother and my mom looking at me. I specifically remember the memory. She was leaning on the seat in front of her, looking at me like this. And she was like, "This is so crazy. We've never been on a plane together." And I was like, "I know." And she was like, "Thank you so much for this trip." Because I took her to DC with me in November to win an award for Podcaster of the Year. And she's thanking me. And I'm literally thinking in my mind, this should feel very special. And it feels like nothing. I feel nothing. And I just remember those couple months being like, you are exactly where you want to be and you can't feel shit. So something's wrong. And we processed this at the end of last year. And 3 weeks later, it didn't take long. I had a massive temper tantrum, and I'm going to call it a temper tantrum because my younger self was losing her shit. And I had an opportunity to encounter a situation with after the transition I had been through with separating from my former partner. And we had a in-person blow up. And by in-person blow up, I mean, I blew up. I snapped. Lost my shit. Anything that I had ever done to self-regulate, to be the bigger person, to make better decisions, that shit went out the window. And that doesn't justify any of it. But reprocessing that with you recently was really profound for me because, I heard everything. Like, why did, from everyone, like, why did you react like that? You did so good for so long. What happened? I completely lost touch with myself that night. And there was, all types of involvement, things leading up to it, suppressing the existing emotion that I had around it. It was all the numbness and the pain, and there was alcohol involved, and there's just all these things. But when I reprocessed that memory with you, because it was painful and I was very ashamed of it, extremely ashamed of my behavior. Man, it was this part for me, because you were walking with me through the whole night and you kept trying to figure out, like, what is the part that you're so ashamed of? Like, what is the part that is like got you? And it was wild because I had not gone through all the pieces where I was like, it just, the night in general was like, I was like, girl, you're embarrassed. Like, that was embarrassing. And we got to a part where I realized I didn't even know that was what bothered me so much. And you said, walk in there as your highest self, as if this was a friend or someone that you knew, or you, and imagine your highest self now. And so, of course, who do I envision? I envision this version of me on stage with a mic, hair done, like feeling my best. And you're like, walk in there and coach her through this. Talk to her about how you see her as your highest self. And you said, and put a glass between you and or maybe, I don't know if I did that on my own. I did that on my own. Okay.
You did that on your own.
I did that on my own. Okay. So in my mind, a glass drops in between me and my former partner in the whole situation right before it blows up. And you tell me to walk in and kind of talk myself off this ledge. And I swear to God, and as I'm reprocessing this, I'm walking in, and y'all, I'm walking in like, I can feel like I got a model walk. Like, I picture myself walking in the door. I got these heels on. I'm like, I'm about to bring you off this chaotic ledge, even though the deed is done, but I'm about to bring you off this chaotic ledge. You about to get down and you about to calm your ass down. And I'm going to tell you who you are. And I walked in with so much confidence, and there's this glass in between us. And instead, I'm trying to talk to me. But in this memory, I can see myself with the clothes I had on. And instead, like a 5-year-old child, I'm kicking the glass. I'm kicking it. I'm punching the glass. And I literally picture me on the other side of the glass, like flicking the glass, like I'm flicking the people off on the other side of the glass. And I'm like punching the glass and kicking the glass. And she's like, are you talking to her? And I'm like, I can't. I'm losing my shit. And she's like, what do you mean? And I'm like, the version of me that's there that night is losing my shit. I'm kicking the glass. I'm screaming. Like, I was like screaming like profound, like profanities. Like, I was flicking birds. I was kicking the glass. And I told you, and you go, okay, just let her do that.
Well, in the memory, everything was safe. There was a big piece of glass.
In the memory, there was a piece of glass. Like,
she wasn't going to get hurt.
You didn't tell me to put the glass there. So
I know, that's what I'm saying. But your brain did. Your brain wanted to make that divide.
I must have known. And the fighter in me was losing it. And I'm crying, and I'm like, Heather, I don't know, but she's losing her shit. It's worse than what it actually was. And I can't remember what you did, but you calmed me down. And then you said, okay, you said, this is your younger self throwing a tantrum about the fact that what's being validated in front of your eyes, AKA you're so angry that this is just another tick. This is another situation that right before you is saying, indeed validating to you, you don't matter.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, oh my God.
This was just the perfect example of that.
It was the perfect example of that. And again, I'm not justifying my piss poor behavior that night. Mm-hmm. But to me, that said so much about why I was inconsolable. I was inconsolable that night. You could not get me off the cliff I was prepared to hang myself from based on my behavior. Mm-hmm. And I guess this is just to show the deep work that needs to be done. But I guess my question to you is, especially after we had reprocessed that, which to me just meant it was my first invitation into knowing. So it was like, now I know the thing that bothers me. And then it was given to me to visualize. And I don't know that I could have kept myself from that reaction, knowing or not knowing. I don't know if I could have kept myself from that. So I guess my question to you is, how do we, I guess, knowing these things or the power of EMDR, how do we work through these things in a way that, because I really feel like you're only as healed as your next trigger. That triggered the very vicious thing that I've been telling myself for 28 years. So what does like unraveling that and fixing that and healing that look like? Because I'm just going to invite that into my life over and over again until I find it again, or I can't live with it anymore.
Well, there could be just because that was a very young memory. There could be another memory that's even more powerful than the one that we reprocessed. That could be the root, or it could be other memories. Sometimes you'll have a negative cognition that will, be developed when you're young, and then something tragic happens and it just reaffirms it. So that becomes its own, like it takes on its own form almost. Like it becomes so massive that we sometimes actually have to reprocess that first so that we can get to the younger one. Because it's so there's likely other, and it could be a different negative cognition as well.
I can imagine how many times I validated this in my life by choice with the partnerships that I chose and the things that I've done. So even for someone like me, and I know there's far more traumatic situations, is this, I don't know that this is a word. Is this solvable? Is this healable? Is this removable? Because let me tell you what I don't want. You know what I don't want. I don't want to put myself in another situation again where I can give. And that's it. In me telling you all this, it's really me trying to take radical responsibility for the fact that partner, no partner, doesn't matter who the individual was. I will go find that again. I will go find something or someone else that just puts me in the cyclical cycle of proving to myself that I indeed don't matter until I yank this out and once and for all work through it and reprocess it and completely. Is there a completion to this?
Well, it's not that you're looking for someone that's going to prove that you don't matter. You're actually doing the opposite. You're looking for someone that's going to really show you how much you do matter.
Where do I go wrong with that?
Because generally speaking, because that's ideally that would be something we would want to find in ourselves. So you look for certain types of people. I'm not saying you in general, but I'm just talking like,
no, say me, it's fine.
That type of, it's almost like a victim mentality. You're searching for something that you lack. It doesn't matter what it is. It could be safety. It could be, any number of things. In your situation, you're saying, I don't matter. So you're going to find people that are going to really make you forget that they can like seek it out sometimes too. It's like
they
almost
can sniff it out.
Yeah, they can sniff it out. And it's like you just walk around like, yep. Just validate me.
I think I don't.
I'll fall in love.
I think I don't matter.
Forever.
Hold on. How do I shake that shit off? I need that off.
Well, it's not. It's because there's probably still some parts of you that feel that way. So we've got to reprocess through those and get through and really totally just get rid of that belief. And then you'll know you matter. So you won't be seeking somebody. Then you'll find somebody. Then somebody would come into your life that you wouldn't need that validation because that's something you already know. So then will just, if they give validation, it will only be like reinforcing something that you already know. Like, thanks for noticing. I am pretty cool.
I notice that I am able to affirm myself and trust myself more when my boundaries show up naturally. Does that make sense? Like when I'm like, oh, the old you would have definitely been okay with that. Or the old you would have definitely like welcomed that. But I realize that I'm like, oh no, I'm good. Like, oh no, I don't need that. Like, oh no, I don't need to do that to please you. Like I'm good.
Yeah.
And that's when I realize I'm like kind of building the building blocks on being 100% okay with me. But you and I talked about this, and I want to bring this part up for anyone listening. This might be helpful. You told me one time that, and I know I'm not unique because there's so many of us out here like this, that listen, your girl I'm an entertainer. I can sing, dance, and talk on stage and play the tune all day long. You were like, you know how to show up when it comes to showing up for other people. But when it comes to relationships and love, I live in a victimization map, or lived. I would like to say past tense, working on it.
Yes.
Live in a state of victimization, which makes it where I can't even tell that I'm trying to validate myself in partnership. And I think for many of us women that are trying, because that ends up being somewhat of a trauma response as we become very successful, because we're trying to validate to someone or something or somewhere in the world that we indeed matter. Somehow we end up becoming like wildly successful from it, and very freaking lonely doing that. So
I'm a therapist